Welcome to Courageous Leadership Conversations. I'm Vera Turner. Today's conversation is focused on using data to improve classroom practice and student achievement. Joining us to discuss her insights about this is Dr. Robyn Duran, Executive Director of Excellence and Equity at Cherry Creek School District in Colorado. Welcome, Robyn. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Vera. Thank you.
From your perspective, Robyn, what do you see as one of the major factors that teachers face, their challenges in using data to improve student achievement?
Certainly the factor of how to analyze the data and how are we interpreting the data, and then what types of data are we using in order to influence our teaching and our learning about our practices. But the second thing is, how do our beliefs and our assumptions intercept our interpretation of data?
What do you perceive your role to addressing some of those specific kinds of issues?
My role is really about challenging the system and looking through a critical lens in our systems, our policies, our practices, particularly in meeting the needs of all of our students. In addition to building capacity, is about supporting teachers in their knowledge about culturally responsive teaching and the students that they're interfacing with, in addition to the skill and then the will to meet the needs of all the students. So it's all of those pieces combined. It's a mixture of skill, will, capacity, and knowledge.
What kinds of specific strategies have you implemented within your district to help improve classroom practice?
You know, when I think of our district performance plan, we have five major improvement strategies, and explicit in each of those are how we use data to inform our practices. And so right now we're really focused on access and opportunity to learn and ensuring that students are on a course trajectory that's going to prepare them for post-secondary readiness and college success.
Do you have any specific examples that demonstrate how you've done on the classroom or the school level your success?
At the classroom level, it's really data to the desktop, and right now our organization is making data accessible to the teachers right there in their classrooms so they can see how the students are doing on interim assessments as well as summative assessments. On a larger scale, it's looking at our course enrollment guide, looking at course trajectories, making sure that students are on the right path, and that content learned is content assessed, and so making sure that our students are in the right classes, and that even with all the great culturally responsive pedagogy, if they're not in the right classes and they don't have access to that, then it doesn't make sense.
What are some of the challenges that you've had to face, and how have you addressed those kinds of challenges?
I think that it's less about the technical challenge. Certainly we have incredible people that interface with all the technology and bring data to the desktop, and we have information systems that are helpful. So it's less about the technical pieces and more about those adaptive challenges. And so again, helping us to look at data coupled with what are our beliefs and our assumptions, and do we tend to have this meritocratic idea about students and what they should be able to know and do at any given time.
Thinking back, what is your biggest lesson that you've learned?
I think that what we've seen and what we've learned is really more aligned with course enrollment and trajectories of students in the right classes. So we're looking at data in terms of who's in what classes and how are they performing. For example, if ACT is the benchmark, what is the trajectory that's going to support our students to be successful on the ACT, and who's in those courses, who isn't in those courses, and then disaggregating the data by race and determining whether or not our system is really designing the system to get the results it gets.
What advice would you give other school leaders about building a data-driven culture that engages everyone? And I'm talking about the school leaders, the teachers, and the students.
It would be certainly to not just look at data in isolation, but also look at data in terms of the students and in terms of myself as the educator. So if I'm the teacher that's working with the child, then what is my role in those results? Not relying just on technical fixes and being very technical in this process, but also being very reflective and metacognitive about our pieces.
Your district participates in the Closing the Gap Turning Data into Action program. What impact has your participation in the communities of practice had on your work at the district level?
I think it's been incredibly helpful to broaden the conversation and to not just work in a silo, but to broaden the conversation to include other school districts and other educators in this conversation to help us benchmark where we are in terms of the broader conversation, and then also to just maybe unpack some of our thinking and help in that dialogue. I think it's done quite a bit.
Robyn, is there anything else that we haven't covered in this conversation already that you think is very important to be able to share with other districts about what you're doing in your particular district?
We're very proud of where we're headed, but we know we have a lot of room to grow. Certainly there is predictability and achievement by race, and that's something that we take very, very seriously. And so looking at it in a holistic approach, if I haven't emphasized it enough, I think that would be my largest emphasis, is to really look at all of the pieces between not just capacity and how data informs capacity, but also looking at knowledge, looking at our skill to navigate the pitfalls with this conversation, and then also the will, and having a critical mass, a collective group of people really having the will to change the system.
Thank you, Robyn. That was a great piece of advice. I appreciate your insights and also sharing the experience of your district.
Thank you, Vera, for the invitation. We appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us. For more Courageous Leadership Conversations, visit our video channel on YouTube.
This episode of Courageous Leadership Conversations was made possible by a generous grant by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation as part of the Closing the Gap, Turning Data into Action program.